Go.
And welcome to another Wednesday night extravaganza right here, live and in person. Both Darren DeMaili and myself, Bobby Lopez, at Quick Fix Golf. And we have a special guest tonight, which is Clay Long. And you're going to really enjoy this one. If you really love golf and golf clubs, you're going to learn a lot. So here it comes.
Yes, and we appreciate you coming on, Clay. And I am live in Myrtle Beach. I'm Darren DeMaili.
And I'm Bobby Lopez, and we are the PGA Pros.
We are the PGA Pros
at Tupelo Bay. We're trying to time this just right. I'm in one place, he's in another. So
yeah, you're on radio delay there.
Yeah, you got that right. Go ahead and tell them about the free analysis of their swing.
So what we want you to do is get your cell phone out, and we want you to take a video of your golf swing, and we're going to take a look at it free of charge. Not a penny out of your pocket. So send it to us at quick service at quickfixgolf.com, and we'll get a drill right out to you, just for your golf swing, and you owe it to yourself.
It's all free.
It's all free.
Here's our guest tonight, Clay Long.
Oh,
how about a round of applause or something? Yay!
Good-looking guy.
Is that your
Look
picture?
At
I hope that's your picture. I was checking through all the post office.
About 20 years ago.
And is that Nicklaus when he had your putter?
That is Jack in '86 on 17, I believe.
There it is.
Right, and that's your putter.
Yes,
that's
sir.
my putter.
Well, let's say a little bit about what Clay Long. I hate that, this is sort of long to read because he's such a distinguished guest, but Clay Long is one of the most experienced and well-respected designers in the golf industry. During his 33-plus year career, he served as Vice President of Research and Development of McGregor Golf, Chief Designer to Pro Group and the Arnold Palmer Company, Vice President of Research and Development of Cobra Golf. Why didn't you run for president of the whole freaking country? I mean, it's unbelievable. We'll be here for days. See? So you're Ole Miss. You went to Ole Miss.
I did.
And you got a degree just like Darren's, BS.
That's right.
Exactly. Perfect for the golf business.
All right. Now, is that the putter?
That's it.
Did I get the right picture?
Actually, that's not the Jack putter, but that is one of the response putters. Yeah.
All right. Now, what was so great about the response putter? When you designed this right from scratch, I guess, huh?
We did. Yeah, we did. Well, it was tremendously oversized. It's actually still tremendously oversized even by today's standards. But in 1986, when drivers were 125 cc's, it was a humongous. So it was really big and really forgiving, and that was its purpose, was to be very, very forgiving on off-center hits. And
so what does forgiving mean to you as a designer?
Well, it just means if you don't hit it in the center, the club twists a little bit less, and you get a better, straighter, longer shot than otherwise. That's really all it means. The club's resistance to twisting on an off-center hit is, you might say, minimized.
That's the MOI, right, Clay?
That's right, by the moment of inertia, exactly.
And the see the little cross on the back. You see most putters nowadays with just kind of one line, kind of pointing down the target line. Is there anything specific about the cross on the back that you put there?
We did that. That's actually a lot more difficult to do than just put a single straight line in it, because when you're casting a part, the cavity part of that club pulls straight out of the back, and with that cross line in there, it locks it in, and you have to make a separate piece. So we thought that 90-degree line would aid you in aligning the putter head, and so we put it in there anyway. But it's a lot more difficult to do that than just to put a single line in there.
I'm a huge proponent of kind of that second line that you're talking about, because I think that line that points down the target line, people get so caught up in swinging the putter straight back and straight through, they kind of lose sense of where the putter face is pointing. And that's really a big part of getting the ball to start on line, getting the face in the right spot. So I really think that's an important line there, and a lot of putters don't have that line there.
Well, like I said, if it's a casting, it's kind of difficult to put it in there. If you're and if you're machining a putter, it's a little easier actually if you're machining it, but not really simple, because it's hard to get a cutter right up there, close to the face. But
That's interesting. Why don't you explain to our listeners here what the difference is between the two? Because you know, that's sort of insider jargon there. As to
Oh, you mean a casting and a mill putter?
Correct.
Well, in a casting, at some point in that process, the putter head is a wax impression of the putter head. So there's a mold that's made of the putter, and then wax is injected into it, and then the wax is cooled, and then the mold is opened up, and the wax comes out, and it goes through an investment casting process that ultimately makes a metal wood head. But the mold that makes the wax, you have to get the wax out of that mold, and certain things in the design, like undercuts, for instance, or make the tool, the wax tool, very difficult to make. It has to have like loose pieces to come out of sliding out of different places to get out from under an undercut. And that little line, sight line that runs heel to toe, actually locks the putter in the mold, and you have to have a special loose piece in there that comes straight up in order to make that. But so that's an investment casting. If you're going to machine a putter, there's some other problems involved in machining a putter. You start out with either a forging or a block of metal, and you just cut the putter head out of that, like a say the Scotty Cameron putters and the Bentonardi putters. And that poses, a different set of problems, because you have to be able to get to all the surfaces with a cutter. And, once again, undercuts create issues because it's hard to, you almost can't get underneath something to mill it. So milling it is a whole different process, and it cuts a putter out of usually a one-piece block, and it takes, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of an hour to machine the one putter head with a milling machine. So it takes a lot longer to make one. They're a lot more accurate, and castings can be made, much quicker and easier.
So you say that the milled putter is more accurate?
The face is flatter. All the lines are perfect, pretty much perfectly true because it's machined. So the casting is it's prone to a little bit of warping. The wax warps a little bit when it cools, and the metal warps a little bit when it cools. And if you don't machine all that out of the casting, then the lines aren't perfectly straight on it like it is on a mill putter.
Can you just tell us a little bit about how Nicklaus came to using that putter, Clay?
Well, it was kind of really sort of an accident. We were developing, we were working on an idea, at the time, my R&D group. We were working on a putter that had an overhang on the top line where you couldn't look down and see the face. And we were going to machine the face at different angles depending on how you lined up your putter. If you lined your putter up consistently to the right, you were going to get a closed face. And if you lined it up consistently to the left, you were going to get an open face. And so we were going to hide the face, so you couldn't really see where the face was pointing. All you could see was a little upper lip of the top line.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of work and research on that and tested it, and it worked quite well. And we sent it into the USGA, and they said, this is not conforming. This overhang on the top is not conforming. Well, I have to regress a little bit. In order to make that little thing that sticks out over the top line not hit a golf ball, we had to make the face really deep.
Right.
Otherwise it would hit the ball. So we just scaled the putter up. We just scaled the whole thing up so the face would be deep enough not to, the top line could never hit the ball.
Hence the size.
That's
right.
how it got oversized.
Yep.
So when the USGA told us it wasn't conforming, we had all these prototypes of these giant aluminum putters that we had been testing. And so we cut the little overhang off of it and squared the faces up on them. And what we had left was just a giant aluminum putter. And really, at that time, no home, because the concept we were trying to develop had been shot down. So, but it did have a huge moment of inertia. And we knew that, but it was still, it was still huge, and our concept had been thrown out. Well, Jack comes to the sales meeting in Albany, and he's going over through the plant. We're showing him some stuff out in production on a tour, and we walk back through the R&D offices back there, and I had about 4 of them leaning up against my door in my office. And as we walked by, I grabbed one and I said, "Hey, look at this." And he picked it up and looked at it and said, "Is this a joke?" And I said, "No." I said, "Here, hit a couple putts with it." Because we had AstroTurf on the floor of the office in the R&D office. I dropped a couple balls and he had a couple of putts down the carpet. And he kind of looked over at me, kind of, like with his eyes rolling up, and said, "Okay, well, send me a couple and I'll try them." And I said, "Okay." So that was how he came in contact with the response putter.
That's such a great story.
So I sent him a couple, and we're never thinking anything about that he might use this or anything. I mean, no, that was no one's even considering that. I sent him a couple, and he called back about 2 weeks later, called me on the phone in the office and said, that putter you set down here, those putters, they're not too bad. And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, they're not too bad." And I said, "Well, do you think we can make a product out of them?" And he said, "Yeah, I think maybe you could." And I said, "Okay." So I hung up the phone. I went straight up to George Nicklaus' office, who was the president of the company. And I told him what Jack said. And he said, "Okay." He said, "I tell you what." Now you got to remember, at that time, we had sold about 1,200 putters the year before, Pro Line putters. 1,200 is all we had sold. We were selling no putters. He said, "Okay, make us a line of 4 of them, and we'll introduce them in January at the PGA show." Now this was June. Yeah, this was June. So that's not much time to get a product ready for July.
6
so
months,
anyway, that's how it. And then we made them. We got some tooling made. We made some started making a few parts, and sent some down to Jack, and he called back and said, "I won't mind, make me one black." And so we painted his black, and then in January he started using it, which we were just flabbergasted. We didn't think he was going to use it. We were excited that we were just going to get to make a product out of it because we had done so much work on it. So he started using it, and we introduced it at the PGA show and gave away 300 down there, and I think we booked about 5,000 pieces at the show.
Which is, by the way, end of January. Go ahead.
That's right. Which our forecast for the year was 6,000 from marketing. So we were really beside ourselves from an R&D standpoint that we had already sold almost the whole forecast. And so Jack started putting with it, and he was playing really poorly that year in '86, early '86. He was missing cuts and playing bad, and he was using this putter, and we were just scared to death that he was going to stop using it and go back to the George Lowe because he was playing awful. And we had sold, I think, up to the Masters, we had sold about 20,000 putters. So it was a big success internally. For us, even before the Masters came along. That's what people don't really realize, that it became this unbelievable thing after the Masters because we had already sold, I don't know what, 3 times, over 3 times our forecast. So we were just beside ourselves, the product development group, because anytime something oversells the forecast, you're all giddy in R&D. So then he'd been playing terrible, and then he wins the Masters, and then and the way he won the Masters, and it was absolutely, it was undefinable what happened after that.
I can't even imagine.
You just, I think we sold 5,000 before noon that Monday on the phone, is what they told me. And I mean, it was just, we had so many orders that the whole iron department became full of putters. It was just insane. And of course, we were having a ball. I was flying out here to California to get, duplicate tooling made so we could make more putters. And Coast Cast was they were full of aluminum putters, and it was wild and crazy, and it was great fun.
Wow.
That's a heck of a story.
That is a great story, Clay. That is fantastic.
Now, Clay, I got this question for you.
All right.
You made this club, did you not?
I did.
Now, Darren makes fun of me because I have my little talk that I give to players, and I say, it's not your fault that you can't play golf that well, because the golf club is a piece of crap. It's not built properly. It should have equal amount of weight on the other side of the axis, just like a tennis racket.
That's really pretty true. Yeah.
Is it? I don't know, you know, because I'm so full of baloney that I just come up with stuff, you know. But I just felt, I said, you know, geez, you should have just as much weight on the other side of the axis. And I heard that you guys tried to put this together and have enough weight there, but that the USGA kicked it back. I mean, what's the real story?
Well, you're limited by how far behind the center of the shaft you can go in the heel direction on an iron, not on a putter, but on an iron. I think it's 3/8 of an inch. So you can't make an iron look, you can't make it look like a banana with the shaft in the middle of it, because there's a limit to how far back in the heel you can go.
I got you.
But until this club came out, nobody was putting any weight behind the hosel. And we took a look at moment of inertia and blade length and all this kind of stuff, and you know, there were 3 or 4 of us that were engineers, you know, in R&D, and so we know what causes inertia and what makes a club, you know, right bias and all that. It's just kind of, that's all physics and, you know, physics basically. And so we got to looking at it and said, well, we can make a club more forgiving by hollowing out the middle and putting weight on the heel and toe. We know that. Karsten kind of broke through with that. And,
right.
And we also know that we can make it more forgiving if we lengthen the blade. If we draw the toe out way away from the shaft, then the head gets more forgiving. But it also gets more right bias. The longer you make the blade, the harder it is to close it, the more
right.
likely it is to hit the ball to the right, which
exactly.
of course is the last thing you want to make a club do, is go right, because, you know, 98% of the people that play golf fight hitting the ball to the right. So that's one of those things where you look at it and say, well, what can I do to increase the moment of inertia without lengthening the blade so much, or any at all? And the answer is, well, you have to spread the weight further from the center of the club. You got to get it as far away from the center of the club as you can. And so we got to looking and saying, well, you know, behind the hosel's further away than the heel is by quite a bit. And if we put some weight behind the hosel and then counterbalance that over on the toe and keep the center of gravity right in the middle of the blade, we can make the moment of inertia go up without lengthening the blade. So now I got a club that's more forgiving, but it's not right bias. So it's like the best of everything. It just looks a little funny. And so that was the whole premise behind the PhD. It was extreme heel toe weighting, if you would.
Now,
and we went as far behind the hosel as the rule would allow us, and then we counterbalance that weight out on the toe.
I saw a set of clubs when I was a kid. This is 1964, 65, 63, somewhere along in there, where the shaft was on the top and the head underneath. And I heard it was, you know, that was unacceptable. It was non-conforming.
Yeah, right.
But then you wouldn't have the problem of having to rotate the golf club around the axis, because the golf club was actually underneath the shaft. I mean, they'll let you make a putter that way with the putter shaft.
That's right. That's right.
Why won't they let you make a golf club that way, so people could play golf and not slice?
I do not know. I guess because it's not, I guess maybe it's not traditional or.
I think the Russians did it. The Russians did it.
Yeah, that's what you always say. Yeah, we appreciate your time, Clay. We're definitely starting to run out of time here, and I've got a ton of questions for you. And we want to promote kind of what you're doing. But before we promote what you're doing, tell us a little bit about the high toe wedge and kind of your work with TaylorMade, or what kind of input you had there.
Well, I did. I went in full time. I started working with TaylorMade as a consultant on wedges in 2011, and I worked for 3 years as an outside consultant, and I was working on wedge shapes. I think the TP line of wedges and the EF wedges were my shapes. And then I went in full time in 14, and I had putter and wedge in product creation. And I did that for I guess not quite a year, and then I moved into more of an advisory role. But the mill grind series was my work, and then the the high toe series that followed that was some of my work there before I left the company in September of 17. But yeah, that was the mill grind. I think those are some of the best wedges that have ever been made. I'm a little biased on that, but they're outstanding shapes, and there's a lot of work done on the leading edges and soles, and they're machined, so they're all perfect. Everyone's exactly alike. So I was very happy with how that turned out. And then the high toe really was kind of a surprise. That was kind of an add-on.
You've got a ton of wins this year with that high toe wedge. You got Gary Woodland, winning at the U.S. Open.
That's right.
You got John Rahm playing it. I mean, there's a ton of credibility there.
Yeah, the whole staff used it. It surprised me. It really did. But they really liked the shape, as I was told. They really thought it looked good on the ground, and I think just about everybody used it. I think maybe Rose didn't use it. I think Justin maybe was the only guy that didn't use the high toe, but he used all the mill grinds. So I think that was a big successful thing for TaylorMade, and I'm happy that turned out to be a really good product. I always thought that was a good idea to do that.
Clay, what do you think about the beveling of the leading edge? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to hear a little bit about what you're doing nowadays, and what kind of things that are in the works.
I'm working on some of my own putters. I'm redoing my putter line. That putter line that's on the website was done between 2001 and 2005. So I'm redoing that, and I'm thinking about doing some new wedges. I haven't started on those yet, but I'm thinking about it. And I'm doing some consulting work too for a couple of companies. But this putter line is mostly blades, and of course the model that sold the best was obviously the Mallet, because putter lines have become really heavy, mallet heavy in the last 10 years. And so I haven't worked on this.
Sure.
I've been doing other stuff in the last 10 or 12 years. So I'm working on some new modern putters. I've got a new insert I'm working on that I'm pretty excited about, that I'm going to put in them. And you can see what I'm tinkering with on Instagram. I think that's Clay Long Design on Instagram. I post pictures of what I'm tinkering with.
And if our listeners want to get in touch with you, it's at rollyourball.com. Is that right?
That's right. That's correct. Yep. You can find me there. You can email me if you got a question, or you interested in something I'm making.
We got a question from the group here, and it looks like a good one. It says, Arthur asks, speaking of everyone is exactly alike, would you please speak to the tolerances of OEM swing weights? I've been playing a set of irons for about 14 months, and I've always felt like the pitching wedge and the 9-iron feel completely different than the rest of the set. I went for a fitting and had them measured. Sure enough, the pitching wedge were DO, and the rest of the set was D3. Well, really, it should be the other way around, should it not? I mean, the pitching wedge in the 9-iron should be maybe D5, while the rest of the set's D3.
Well, probably, the 9-iron. Well, I don't know, but no, they ought to match. They ought to match the sets. What they ought to do. The sand wedge might be a little heavy, but I would certainly think the 9-iron and the pitch would match.
Match would be better, but certainly not lighter.
No, not lighter. I would say that's not right. And I think if you questioned any one of the major OEMs, they'd tell you the same thing, that they don't make them that way on purpose, for sure.
Now, did you know this club builder at McGregor? I wanted to show his.
Who, Don?
Right there, Don White.
I know Don very well.
I went to McGregor, and they were at that time selling sets of irons for $8,000.
Mm-hmm.
You remember this?
Don. I've spent many hours on a wheel with Don. He's the best grinder on the planet. Let me tell you.
Yeah, he seemed like he was very nice. He was very nice to deal with. Good guy.
He's a great guy, and I'm telling you, he's the best there is. The best.
And
wow.
you would go there, and he would work the head any way you wanted. He'd square off the toe, or he'd build the front edge, whatever, and then he'd build the whole set according to that. And it was $8,000 a set.
If you know what you want, he can make it for sure. He's a phenomenal club maker, and he's the best grinder that I've ever seen. Easily the best. Somebody asked me who are the top 3 grinders, and I told them Don White would be first, and second would be Don White, and then trailing close and third would be Don White.
I thought he was pretty good when I saw him, but I don't know like you do, to really what I'm looking at. But he seemed like he really knew what he was doing.
He does know what he's doing. He made all of Jack's clubs, and he made Norman's clubs and Azinger's clubs, and Lord knows. I mean, there was at one time half the tour were playing with clubs that he had ground for the touring pros. Not all McGregor. We were stamping different stuff out of the custom department. We made the Cobra, all the Cobra custom stuff came out of McGregor when it was still going. So
what does all that mean to the average golfer, though? What the average golfer? How do they even know the difference?
The average golfer? The average golfer probably wouldn't know the difference, But that doesn't mean that there are people that can appreciate it, I mean, a guy with a 20 handicap it'd be a waste of money to have a set done made,
Yeah, I think they just want a low center of gravity and something gets the ball up in the air.
It'd be kind of like giving me a $20,000 guitar, I can play a guitar, but that'd be a waste of money on me,
You get one of those $199 ones where they sell it with the guy that goes, "Ah, la paloma blanca."
That's right. That's right.
All right, let's open it up for a few questions. We got anybody who have any questions?
Anybody else got a question? You could type in the box or you can ask it. Let me see. Let me try and see if we turn on the microphones. All the mics are on. I know Sippy's got a question.
Yeah. I heard you say something about an optimal swing weight is a D3 on a set of irons.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of. I don't pay attention a lot to swing weight, quite frankly. Me. You can make a pipe that weighs 100 pounds D2 if you want.
That's right. I wouldn't say there's an optimum, but most sets these days are made around D2. It's a good way to match the set. You certainly don't want those weights to vary a whole lot in a good set.
Mike asked,
if I remember right, Jack's clubs were D3. I mean, we had a chart in the back room there, or the club repair room at the Bears Club.
I think the irons were D2.
D2.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mike is asking, drivers are adjustable. Why? What is the reason for irons not being adjustable?
Well, one reason is that irons don't really have a face angle. The soles are so narrow that you can kind of open and close an iron to your own liking, whereas a wood kind of has a tendency to sole itself and sit a certain way. So
Plus
it would be generally considered that a driver has a face angle and an iron really doesn't. So that face angle is also tied to loft. So
the irons have loft, right? That's why you have the whole set.
If you want to hit an iron lower, you can close it a little bit. Or if you want to hit it a little more left, you can just shut the face and hit it. And a driver has a tendency, to it kind of has a tendency to sole itself on the ground and sit a certain way. Not to say you can't close it or open it, but people tend to hit the club based on how it sits on the ground to a large extent. Not everybody, but to a large extent.
So I'll share a story here. I've seen and been right there with Jack when the Air Bears came out, the 360s and the whatnots, and Gomes would come out with 12 different driver heads, and we'd sit there and Jack would sole them and he'd look at them and he'd throw one away and grab the next one until he found one that really suited his eye or the way that it sold right.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so now we've got adjustable neck where you can kind of roll it a little open or a little closed. It takes a little loft on it when you open it, and it gains a little loft when you close it. And so that obviously affects the ball flight depending on your swing. And so it's a really great thing that that change in the rules allowed us to do.
Yeah, but tour players don't like having that adjustable. neck on the
Well,
driver.
they adjust it. They get adjusted when they're when they're getting set up for the club.
Right. Then they have a belt. Who wants that additional weight down there?
Well, it's all balanced though. It's all accounted for in the design.
Another question here is thoughts on best type of putter, mallet or blade for the various greens, bent or Bermuda?
It's just a personal thing. I don't think you could say one's better than another for this and that. It just depends on how you line it up, how you look at it, what it looks like to you. Can you aim it? Can you aim a blade better than a mallet or vice versa? And I certainly wouldn't say that blades and mallets are better for Bermuda or bent or one way or the other. It's really a personal thing.
What about the loft? I know in the good old days the loft used to be around 7 degrees. Now it's 3
on a putter.
For a putter.
Yeah, about 2 to 3. The most of the blades are manufactured. We cut them with 4, and mallets are cut with about 3, roughly, is where they're at today, off the shelf.
And why were they 7 in 30 years ago?
Well, I can't personally tell you that I ever saw or made one that had that much loft, but greens were slower 30 years ago, and you always want to lift the ball up off the green a little bit when you hit it. You don't want to hit it down into the grass, but I'd say I think putters have they've run around 4 degrees for a long time. Mostly, mallets have a tendency to have a little less loft because they have a tendency to look hooked if they have too much loft. But somewhere between 2 and 4 with a blade is going to work pretty good, depending on your stroke, depending on how much up you hit on the ball.
Looking for other questions here. I don't see anything here. Well, I tell you what, this was great. I really enjoyed it.
Unbelievable.
Well, I really appreciate
information. Oh no, we loved having you. I mean, you were a lot of fun, and I tell you what, we learned a lot of good stuff here.
Absolutely.
I may send my swing in for another.
There you go.
Somebody else says here. Arthur Foote says Don White is the man.
No question. No question.
Yeah, I enjoyed meeting him too. I felt I was very lucky to meet him. I learned a lot from him when I watched. I was with him for about 2 days straight, and I learned a lot watching what he was doing. And
when he does that, it looks so easy when he's doing it.
I know. And then he sets it on the bench in a little diagram he has there, and then he did it again. Then he handed it to me, and he said, "Okay, does that look like what you want?" I was trying to get him to make it look like a first flight. Remember the old first flight irons?
Yeah, with a little kind of a high toe, sort of.
Yeah, they were square, sort of a squared off toe instead of a rounded toe, a square toe. And then I always had those as a kid, so I got used to that. And your eye gets used to a certain thing.
Don can you can tell Don something doesn't look right, and he'll know what you're seeing even when you don't.
That's amazing.
He's a master. There's no doubt about it.
Well, we really enjoyed it. And I'll send you the link to the webinar so you can pass it around to your pals or your friends or put it on your site or whatever.
Awesome. I will. I'll put a link on my site for it.
Wonderful. Darren, you got anything else?
I'm super grateful. I really am. And with some amazing stories that you're not going to hear anywhere else. We've got some great guests that come on our webinars, and Clay Long is just another one of those just special people that we've heard some stories tonight that not many people know about.
Clay, did you know Chico Miartuz by any chance?
No, I don't. I don't believe I do.
You never met Chico? He made the tomahawk putter.
Oh, I've heard of it. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, the biggest piece of crap you've ever seen.
What company was that, Bobby?
No, what happened? Chico used to be a good player, and I took lessons from him. He was teaching me, and he had a little tiny warehouse where he was making these putters, you see, and I'd get lessons all day, and then I'd put putters together for him to pay for the lessons because I was around 17 at the time. I didn't have any money, and he had these putters, and the used to make fun of because I say, Chico, how could you be selling putters when you can't make a 4-footer? He was the worst putter on the planet. Well, he was making putters, and then he made wedges, and he had grooves on the sole of the wedge.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yep, it was. Yeah, he had grooves in the wedge, and it built at an angle, so you'd have the face open, and you had grooves on it. But Chico was something else.
Was that out in California, out here?
No, it was in Miami.
Miami.
All right.
Been a lot of stuff tried, hasn't there?
All right. Anything else, Darren?
No, good to go. That was fantastic.
Right, enjoyed it. Thanks.
Thanks, Bobby, Darren. Appreciate it.
Thank you again, Clay.
All right. Have a good evening.